Hey, welcome back everyone. Thanks for sticking around for the second part of the SaKE. Two talks from two different universities, but collaborating on the Disco Sumo project. I never know what order to search for it. If you search it in the wrong order, you get dancing babies. That's so. Don't try that. Yeah, really thick dancing babies. I can't help it. And we have a collaboration on some of the topics. So you all were here earlier today as well to talk with some of the teams and already share some of the research. And yeah, we also want to share that in a broader audience. So first talk is from Suzan from the Radboud University in Nijmegen. So please, a round of applause for Suzan.
Thank you. I use this one because the other microphone is too wide for my head. Okay, thank you for inviting us. So Disco Sumo, it stands for Automatic Summarization of Discussion Forum Threads. And it's a collaboration between Radboud University in Nijmegen, Tilburg University and Sanoma Media. So I don't think it can be more different than the previous talk. So there's no overlap at all except for the word Sanoma with the talk before. It's about forum discussions, forum threads. Here's an example from the famous FIFA forum. It's a Dutch, very large forum by a publisher called Sanoma. And this is what I always explain to. And then the category of this thread is psychology. And the title is Fear for Having a blood sample. And there were 43 responses. And what is really typical in this type of forum is that people are looking for advice. Sort of not directly problem solving, it's more like experience sharing, experience and opinion sharing. And discussions forums on the web can be a really important source of information. But the threads can be really long. And therefore finding information in a forum thread can be difficult, especially when accessing the forum on a mobile device. So the question that we asked is, can we serve mobile forum users better by showing them summaries of long threads? So automatically summarizing forum discussions. So when we started thinking about what should a summary of a discussion thread look like, we very soon came up with two different types of forums, actually. So we all know Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is a very typical example of question answering forums. A user has a question, answers are being given by the community, and then the community and the person who asked the question vote for the best answer. So summarizing a Stack Overflow thread or a goeie vraag.nl or Yahoo Answer thread is a matter of finding the best answer. What we are more interested in are discussion forums. Examples Viva, Autoweek, but also the very big American forum Reddit. Here, summarizing the thread is not a matter of selecting the best answer. There's no such thing as the best answer. There is sharing of opinions and experiences. And a thread can consist of dozens, maybe even hundreds of posts. So when summarizing this, we need to take a different approach. The first study that I did was with the FIFA forum. I got a sample of 10,000 threads, and 21% of the threads in this forum is at least 20 posts. So we thought maybe if we see 10 posts on a page, then summarizing would be valuable with over 20 posts. So this is quite a large portion of the forum. It also has some other features. For example, there is no upvoting, so that is really different for most problem-solving forums. There's also no hierarchy in the threads, like in Reddit, where the threads go like a response on a response on a response, and Viva is really flat. The threads are flat. Well, and again, experience and opinion sharing. So the approach that we took, maybe that's the most straightforward approach of doing this. So Sander once explained to me that sort of the default for summarizing a discussion thread would be to show the first 5 and the last 5 responses of a thread. And we thought, well, we might do that much better. So the first step that we took is, can we select the most important, the most relevant posts in the thread? And also, can we select the most relevant sentences in the case of long posts? So the results that I show you now are for post selection. But what I will now show you is a non-live demo. So I opted to not go for the live demo because of problems that always occur with live demos. But this is an interface that we developed in collaboration with TNO. This is actually a Viva Forum thread from the health category. It's about side effects, and actually this is integrated in a search interface. Here there's the query migraine. You can forget about this part. What it shows here on top is the less detail, more detail slide bar, where the user can say, okay, show me this thread without any detail and with everything. So if you put the slide bar here to the complete right, you see everything, the complete posts. If you put it to the left, you only see the opening post. And so what you see here is from each post, 1 sentence is shown, and this is what the model decided to be the most important sentence for each post. Well, some are better than others, so I in my opinion, so the question is, what are side effects that we should just accept for our medication? And then the first two are really clear answers. So these are side effects that we should accept for these medications. But there are also, there's some redundancy which should be definitely removed. So this is work in progress. Okay, so how is it made? Well, it's actually following a pretty standard approach when we are doing supervised machine learning. We collect example data, then we train classifiers to learn what are the most important posts. We apply the classifier to unseen threads, and then we apply a threshold, which was here in the user interface, to decide whether more or fewer posts are shown. Collecting example data, that was already a bit of a challenge, because if you ask 5 people to summarize a thread, all 5 summaries will be different. So there is, and this is also known from the literature on summarization, tend to be a really low agreement among humans about what is the best summary. But what we thought is, if we ask multiple people to select posts from a thread, then at least the posts that were selected by more people are more relevant than the posts that were selected by fewer people. So this is the approach that we took. We made a small sample of Viva threads, 106 long, which means at least 20 posts, and we showed them to 10 different raters. And we asked them, select the posts that you think are the most relevant, most important for these threads. For this thread. And we also asked them, is it relevant to summarize this thread? We had 57 subjects participating from the Viva Forum target group. So this is what the annotator interface looked like. So here on the left side on this column was the full thread. Here's the title, this is the opening post, and here are the responses. And then, so I made a cut here because otherwise this part wasn't shown. Here on the right side was only the opening post was shown and all the responses were empty, and the user could click, or the rater could click on these posts, and then they would be copied to the right part and then sent to form. So we also asked how familiar are you with the topic, and also how useful do you think it would be to summarize these threads. So we also had the options here. Not useful because everything is equally important. So sometimes users selected this because there was very much an on-topic discussion, opinion sharing about a political issue, and then sometimes the rater thought, okay, I cannot decide which of the opinions should be valued more higher than another opinion, so we should not summarize it. Or not useful at all because nothing is important. For example, the topic, which book are you reading? Where hundreds of people post a book title. So, but there's also there's a lot of chit-chatting also going on the forum. So there are definitely threads for which summarization is not useful. But in general, for quite a number of threads, it was judged it is useful. So for over 90% of the threads, at least one subject said, yes, it is useful. For 62% of the threads, at least half of the subjects thought it was useful. So this already shows there's quite some divergence here. There was even more divergence if you looked at the summaries that they created. So the median number of posts that they selected per thread was 7. And interestingly, this was not dependent on the length of the thread, but it was dependent on the individual rater. So some raters selected more posts than others. So this was really an individual preference. And there was also, as expected, a low agreement. So this, you probably haven't heard of this. This is a standardized measure for inter-rater agreement, for the agreement between two humans on one task, on the same task. And it was low. It goes from -1 to 1. And if it's close to 0, that means that it's close to random. But this is actually as expected if you compare it to the literature on summarization. So, yes, indeed, there was a lot of disagreement among the humans. So then the question was, can we build a summarizer that uses this data? So can we use this data for training a supervised model for summarization? And the answer was yes, we could do that. We implemented a series of post features, and we trained a regression model because, as I said, the more votes a post got, the more relevant it was. So this is a regression problem. And so these appear to be the most important features. The model was more complex, but these were the most important ones. So the longer the post, the more often it's selected. The earlier it is in the thread, more often it is selected. The less punctuation it has, the more often it's selected. So posts with a lot of emoticons were just as less relevant. And similarity to the complete thread. So this is sort of a standard measure for summarization, representativeness. So which bit of information sort of summarizes the whole thread. And then when evaluating this model, what we did, so again, we had these labeled data, so we could evaluate it against a subset of the labeled data. And we had two measures. One was the agreement measure. So just like we can compare the agreement between two humans, we can also compare the agreement between a human and the model. And we could calculate a precision recall score, which is if we have two sets of posts, a set selected by the human and a set selected by the model, the difference between them define these measures. And where did we compare it to? We have 3 baselines. A random baseline, which is said, okay, let's select 7 posts randomly. A position-based baseline, which has we select the first 7 posts, so that compares to the example that Sander once gave me about the first 5 and the last 5 posts. And the length-based baseline, the 7 longest posts, because length was an important feature. And this is what we found. So what we see here is that the average F1 of our model was 45%, and that means that almost half of the posts were in common between the model and the human, on average, because of course there were 10 humans per thread. So this is an average. Some humans have more in common with the model and other humans have less in common with the model. And you also see that the other baselines perform poorer, although the length baseline is of the 3 very simple methods is the best. So if you just select the 7 longest posts, you get something in the direction. And you also see that the model was a little bit higher in terms of agreement with the users than the average human agreement, and that's because there were there was a subset of the human raters that were very different from the others, so that brings the average down. So then we thought, okay, this is okay. Given the fact that we had such a large disagreement among the humans, actually we can get pretty satisfying results, but not perfect. And the question was, is that problematic? So can humans be satisfied by a summary that's different from their own? And actually we thought, we hypothesized a summary that's different from your own summary can still be a useful summary. So we tested this by setting up a pairwise side-by-side comparison, so a blind side-by-side comparison, where a human rater was shown 2 summaries, an automatically generated summary and a human summary. And he was just asked which one is better. And he didn't know which one was created by the model. That interface looked like this. So we have here summary A, summary B. What you see, the blue button, they read expand hidden response. So the responses that were not selected by the model, they were hidden, or by the human. And the responses that were selected are shown, the text is shown. And now the question was, which one is better, or is it much better, or are they equally the same? And then what we found was that the human summary more often won, but in more than half of the cases, the model summary was judged as equal or better than the human summary. So this was actually quite satisfying, so that we could create a model that was very often not being rejected by the human raters. So what did we find? The summary, generally, forum users value the idea of summarizing forum threads, but if you ask them to select posts, then the agreement among them is low. Despite that, we can automatically generate summaries that will in half of the cases be judged as equal or better than human-generated summaries, so that's positive. And also the agreement between the model and human summaries is not lower than the agreement among human subjects. So in other words, it's as if someone created a summary for you, but not yourself, because the humans were more positive about their own summary when it was also shown to them in a blind side-by-side comparison. So the most people thought their own summary was the best, but it didn't really matter whether it was another human summary or the model summary created for them. So that's a positive result. And also we concluded that two different summaries can still both be good and more particularly useful summaries, because in the end the goal is to provide searchers for information with an overview of the content of the thread so that they can find the information they are looking for. That's it. Thank you. Are there questions?
No questions.
Thanks for your presentation. When is it implementable? When can we implement it?
Well, there are a lot of different aspects to that question, but so it is implementable. So I have implemented it for the TNO demo, and actually in real time there were some scalability issues because if you enter a query, and this was because it was integrated in the search environment, if you enter a query, then you might get 100 threads as a result. You summarize each of these threads, and for the feature extraction you need to go through all the sentences to extract features, and there were some features that cost time, and so in the end it costs a second to summarize a thread, and 100 seconds is too long for a query to. So that was a problem, but there are ways to because it's very easily parallelizable. So I think that's something we can overwit. But what we need to do is sort of A/B testing with users to see if they actually like it. So if we show some users the full thread and other users the summarized thread with the option to go back to the original, and then see how many users actually go back to the original view. I think that would be important before we make it the true interface. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Did you look in, because now you summarize it for everybody the same, like if you look at Facebook, they summarize it based on your context, for example, who your friends are, and I think especially at Viva there's all these networks of people that want to know, like, who's more important, or rate post on how active somebody is on the forum.
So actually, those are two different things. So actually, the author of the post, when rating the post, scoring the post, the author was considered. so that was one of the features, whether the author, so how active the author was in that thread, and also, but you could also see in the subforum, but that's a bit more. You have to then to keep track of that too. But then on the other thing that you propose, to the personalization aspect, yeah, that's definitely interesting, but also more difficult and more of a niche problem, because we first focus on the information seeking people, just come from outside and then they enter a thread from Google, for example, and then you don't have any profile information. And the active forum users, they mostly go to threads they've been before, so you don't summarize for them, actually. So that's a bit, but personalization is definitely really interesting. And yeah, for example, you mentioned Facebook, but Twitter, the while you were away feature on Twitter is that's also like a timeline summarization, and that's very much personalized based on interactions. Yeah.
Final question? Thank you. We hebben les voor
Nee, nou, ik doe het wel zonder klikker.
Ja?
Ja.
Dat is wel fijn hoor.
Ik weet niet hoe het werkt.
Veldje vooruit. Oh, oké, laat maar.
Nee, nu erin laten zien. Gaan we terug naar... Dan gaat het goed.
Oké.
Ik heb geen
Oh, je hebt
Oh,
hem ook.